All right, next up, Jaylen Wright, Tennessee running back, 5'10.5", 210 pounds, 9 3/8 hands, 31.5 inch arms, 75 7/8 inch wingspan. He is also 20 years old. He'll be 21 on April Fool's Day. He ran a 4.38 in the 40-yard dash. He had a 1.55 10-yard split. He didn't run the 20-yard shuttle or the 3-cone. He had a 134-inch broad jump.
All time.
38-inch vertical. 134 inch.
38 inches. Dude, 11 foot 2 inches
11
he
foot
jumped.
2.
It's nuts.
Ridiculous.
One of the all-time best ever.
In 12 games last year, he had 137 rush attempts, 1,013 yards, 4 touchdowns, 22 receptions, 141 receiving yards, and no additional touchdowns.
Jaylen Wright, when watching him, it reminded me, I talked earlier, I've had a few different guys where comps have seemed to come a little bit easier for me in this class than some others have. And he was a guy that it reminded me of a poor man's guy that we had last year in Jahmyr Gibbs. I think they have some similar skill sets and similar style play to their game. I don't think he's as good as Jahmyr Gibbs.
He's not as explosive.
He's not as explosive overall as Jahmyr Gibbs, but it's a similar play style and similar effectiveness with that play style. I mean, the guy made plays in almost every game he was in. You could point to at least one play where he made a game-changing type play, whether that was a long breakaway run, making somebody miss in the open field, a nice catch,
getting some extra yards with the spin move.
Yeah,
loves that spin move.
He does love that spin move. And he's got a decent dead leg too. He can make some guys miss in the open field. So overall, I was very impressed with his tape. He has really good game speed overall, the burst and acceleration, the quickness. He doesn't have the best contact balance overall, and there's not much of a physical element to his game.
He's not a pile mover. He doesn't get pushed backwards though a lot. I noticed. So he's drawing stalemates out there at least.
Right. So he is somebody that, to be a more complete back, I would like to see a little more physicality in his game. But I think he has so much success with being able to make guys miss that he leans on that. He is somebody that is a problem solver. When I talked before about Braylon Allen not being able to be a problem solver, Jaylen Wright is. And you can see that he does a good job at times of – now, granted, there were some times his offensive line made some awesome holes and awesome plays for him. But there were some other times where he made his offensive line look good.
He'll flash.
Yes.
He'll flash one hole and go to another spot.
And that was one of the things. He pressed the line really good and then was able to make that quick decision to be able to bounce. And that's something that you can try to teach guys, but most guys, they either have that ability to understand how to press.
That's an instincts. That's what we were talking about, the instincts of being a running back earlier.
Le'Veon Bell did best.
Yeah, he was fantastic at that. And Jaylen Wright has that in his game and in his repertoire. So he has the ability to make his offensive line look good even if they're making mistakes.
And Breece Hall is the best example of a guy that can do that right now and did it fantastic coming out of college.
Iowa State.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like watching a video game. I thought Jaylen Wright was the second best running back easily I've watched so far.
Agreed.
These last 2 days, like easily. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about combine before, where does it translate to tape? Like this translates to tape. His speed, it's really nice. For somebody who's super athletic, I didn't think he was laterally as explosive as I would hope he would have been for. Again, just for what I saw, like the kind of player he is, I thought he'd move better laterally than he would. But I mean, I liked a lot. You mentioned how like every game you would see something big. This is somebody who he had out of 136 carries, 19 out of 136 carries went for over 15 yards. Somebody who ran over 10 yards on 25% of his runs, right? So he is a big play waiting to happen. And like you said, a lot of that has to come getting to the line, doing the press, getting outside and hitting a hole and going. Mm-hmm. And obviously his speed, that translates very well. Very good in the passing game as well. Catch the ball really well. Thought his really good stop-start ability was really there. Not really gonna break, like Matt said, like not overly physical. Not gonna break a lot of tackles that way either. So I think
in the open field he can get some extra stuff off DBs. He's not going to grind out any yards with
Gets a linebacker.
Gets linebackers or defensive linemen or anything like
Yeah,
that.
so like you don't like his contact balance, but I thought he had good balance off of contact.
So agree to disagree.
I mean, like I thought like
Explain what you mean.
Explain yourself.
so like I don't think he's overly physical, but like I think he could bounce off. Like I thought he did a really good job like bouncing off hands and moving that way when people got like he's not going to break a lot of tackles to be
depends on
overly physical.
The level of actual contact. How about
Yeah,
that?
like he's
so he does a good job of bringing like arm tackles.
yeah,
what you're
like
saying.
his balance there was like he didn't like just go like a Gorendo, right? Like see ya, like
Go right down. You mean?
yeah, go right down. Like he's not a physical runner. He's not gonna break a lot of tackles, but I thought he was
Physical enough.
physical enough for his play style. Like
Sure.
Yeah.
he going back to like
I thought he had good pad level. How about that? I thought he had
Yeah.
a nice pad level. I do think he used a spin move. I mentioned it earlier
that was nice.
to kind of effectively maybe get glancing blows. You know what I mean? Not take on full
Guys
hits.
being able to square up.
Yeah, and if guys can't square up on him, I do feel like he's got enough contact balance to kind of make that work in the open field.
Kind of a fellow schoolmate, right? Like a not as shifty Alvin Kamara.
I don't love the Alvin Kamara stuff for him. I see why people are drawing the comparison. Alvin Kamara is just a much better running back than him.
Alvin Kamara's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
He's all-time fantasy.
Can I say one thing that did kind of bug me though? Because we've spoken pretty confidently in him, and rightfully so. He's second best guy so far. One thing that did drive me nuts though, he really did not want to run between the tackles. Like watching him play, any opportunity to not have to run between the tackles,
Yeah.
he took it. He took it. And sometimes I think that was the right decision. You know, there are times where it's much wiser to be able to bounce outside, and he has the moves to be able to make that look correct. But I think that there were times that the more effective route was straight up the middle, and he I don't know if it's going back to the physicality thing or what it is, but it seemed like he really tried to bounce as much as he could get away with.
And to add on that and kind of get back to a point that Rich was making, or kind of counter a point that Rich was making, you were saying that you think the speed lines up with what you see on tape. I disagree to that on that a bit. I don't think he's slow by any stretch of the imagination, but we right off the bat, you set out the Jahmyr Gibbs comp, and Jahmyr Gibbs was 0.02 seconds faster than him. He was a 4.36. This guy's a 4.38, and I think they're night and day as far as game speed. I do think Jahmyr Gibbs is just much quicker and much faster than Jaylen Wright here. So that's because I think a Jahmyr Gibbs can get away with going outside and making more plays and making more yards out there. And I think he's fast. Don't get me wrong, he's fast. He's just not that one gear more that you need to be a huge difference maker at the NFL fast. He's not that fast.
You know, it's funny too, because the first game I watched, I believe it was versus Georgia.
Oh, the very first play of the game?
The very first play. So complete opposite of both what you're saying. Very first for the
one
very
carry,
first play of the game.
75-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
Yep.
In between the tackles and burns everybody.
Rest of the game,
Wide open.
Rest of the game, 8 carries, 15 yards.
I'm just saying, it was just funny. Like, both your guys' complaints was the very first play I ever saw of them. It was versus Georgia. First carry of the game, in between the tackles. I'm like, ooh. Oh,
See,
this is going to be fun.
it's right when he goes up the middle, and he's always trying to bounce it outside.
So, and I just see a lot of opportunity here with the Jaylen Wright for fantasy football production, right? Like, I like his patience behind the line. You're right, he does get a little outside. I would like to see him in like some outside zone schemes there to get him the football. I love his ability in the passing game as well. So, like,
very good pass catcher.
I see a lot of opportunity for him to be a viable fantasy football running back here.
Lastly, the last note I'll say, because I echo a lot of what you guys are saying, I wonder, with his skill set, is he a complementary player, or is he a guy that can carry the load? And that's
my guess is probably more of a complementary player, which is not a huge deal in today's NFL. Austin Eckler was a glorified complimentary player.
Tony Pollard type of guy.
Tony Pollard, Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
him and Braylon Allen together would be a
super
good
soldier. Super soldier. But I did like his game. I forgot to mention he got a 74.48 for me. So it was a good score. 74.83 is the highest so far with Jonathan Brooks, though.
Yeah, he was my highest graded running back so far. He's 74.6. A guy I've been high on for a really long time. I actually was pounding the table for him coming in his freshman year at Tennessee. He got a little banged up that year. But cool to see it come through fruition, especially for my Devy rosters. I thought he had really good feet.
Very good feet.
Saw the holes well. I had his patience and his vision both marked at an 8. I didn't really pick up on the bouncing too much thing that you were mentioning, Garrett, but I'll have to go back and pay attention to that. But I thought his speed did show up. Like, I thought he was extremely fast and had that juice, and just something that didn't pop out on anyone else's film so far amongst this group and yesterday's group. But I agree, doesn't break a ton of tackles. Not super elusive, but another guy that's shifty enough. So I think he could end up being the top running back taken, just given some of the things that he offers.
Today's game.
His jump cut ability helps his
and he's young
shiftiness a little bit.
He's super young. Yep.
There's a lot to work with there. And Tennessee's not really known for they rotated him in and out a lot with like 2 other guys, and I'm surprised.
There's a lot of SEC schools that do that, where they rotate their backs quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't give it to him more, because he's best running back I've seen in this class so far. Jonathan Brooks and him are both like 1A, 1B for me right now.
His draft capital will give him a boost. I think NFL teams don't want him on the roster.
Yeah, I could see him going around 2.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see once, we line these 2 guys up, because I think for us, we're all – the one thing that is fairly consensus with us of everybody that we've watched, and I think we can safely say even the guys we're going to talk about, these are the top 2 backs.
And you know what? I know this sounds like a cheap –
Definitely.
Because you could say this. I know you could throw this anywhere on anybody, but he'd be a really good fit with Isaiah Pacheco and the Chiefs. Like,
sure.
He'd be a really good complimentary back to Pacheco. Let Pacheco play out the last year of his rookie deal, and then give him another opportunity. Like, he'd be a really good fit on the outside of Pat Mahomes. There, I think he'd be a really good fit.
I think he's a great fit with somebody that's going to be a banger. Anyone that doesn't catch passes, I think he would complement them really well. I just question whether or not he can take that next step and become a every down back. So that's the only concern kind of I have with him. And not that I have him as a bad speed guy. I don't want it to make it sound like that. But 4.36, 4.38, it just looks different, Jahmyr Gibbs versus him to me.
I think Jahmyr Gibbs burst is better.
I think there's something there.
Yeah, there's something.
That
I agree with you. Like, there's something that with Gibbs
that differentiates
than Wright.
His start ability, his whole overall explosiveness is different.
So I wanted to make sure that was out there.
You're not saying he's slow. You just don't think he's elite fast.
Exactly.
And maybe a guy like Jaylen Wright, though, Matt, isn't the kind of guy that you want to be that 3 down every single down back.
I don't think so.
Maybe the way he wins is 2022 Tony Pollard, right? Where
totally.
Hey, he fixed with that Zeke Elliott, and all of a sudden you do put him in that role, all of a sudden everybody's disappointed.
Yeah, Austin Eckler.
It's not a good fit. So maybe his best role is going to find into that mold. And what we've learned is, again, those are very relevant fantasy football
for sure.
players, and that's where he wins. So
PPR gold.
I don't love this guy. I don't love Jaylen Wright because I'm like, oh, he's a 3 down running back. He's coming out there. He has the skill set that scores fantasy football production. I want him on there second and third down. I don't need him in first down. I need him on there. I need him to be about 15 touches a game.
Yeah,
that's what I want.
You want him. You want him to kill the end of the half and kill the end of the game.
And 6 or 7 of those to be receptions.
Mid-range to high-end running back 2, where some weird year he ends up as a running back 1 once. That's the kind of upside I see with him.
Where we're at right now, his nerd score comes out right around Tajay Spears, Zach Charbonnet, Travis Etienne, where I don't think he's going to get round 1 capital like Etienne did, but those are some good names.
Yeah,
definitely.
And I'm not viewing I think Jonathan Brooks has the upside of being a running back 1, but that's what's enticing about him.
They're different running backs.
Completely different running backs.
They win differently.
Mm-hmm. At least he can win fantasy football wise, and he can be on my dynasty roster for about 3 to 5 years, and I can start him.
I just wanted to make sure it was was mentioned the type of guy you're probably getting your hands on.
Okay.
And that's it. That's why I mentioned it.
I think the one thing with Jonathan Brooks, too, is he's got the height and the build to fill out a little bit more and to get into the 220s
Sure.
and, a little more. I don't think you're adding much more weight, so I don't know that the physical component will ever be there for.
You don't think Wright can get bigger?
For Wright? Not much. I mean,
I think
almost every guy's going to add 5 pounds or so once they get to the
I think
NFL.
it's a body type
I
thing,
think
be a
he's
little bit bigger.
But
yeah, me too.
He's a little. He looks sometimes a little thicker.
Maybe.
Yeah.
There.
Maybe, but I think Jonathan Brooks is a guy that I think could end up playing at a 225.
220.
I mean, how tall is he too? He's like 5'10" and a half, right?
5'10".
Yeah, where Jonathan
guy?
Brooks is 6 foot.
5'10" and a half. So like he's not small.
He's pretty average.
I think he could grow a little bit more. Like
Maybe. I
with
would
legs.
be shocked if we see Jaylen Wright ever be a physical player. But maybe I'm
cushion
wrong.
for the push.
I thought he was just as physical, if not more, than Brooks.